Hello, and welcome to the Behavior Education Connection, the podcast that works to connect the world of behavior analysis and the world of education. We focus on topics important to behavior analysts who work in the public schools and those who support them. Join us and spend time gaining insights and ideas as our host talks with fellow behavior analysts as well as other experts in the field.
Hello, and welcome back to the Behavior Education Connection. I'm your host, Dr. Selena Layden, and today I have with me a very special guest, Jennifer Carpenter from West Virginia. Hi, Jennifer. How are you?
Hi, Selena. Good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad that you're here today. Do you mind introducing yourself to our listeners?
No, my name is Jennifer Carpenter. I am a board-certified behavior analyst. A little bit about my background. My undergrad is in psychology, and I also have a master's in psychology with an emphasis in behavior analysis. I became a board-certified behavior analyst in 2014. I have an interesting, I would say, experience behind me, or different types of things under my belt that I think is very helpful. I actually started out in mental health. So I was a mental health case manager. I worked for an agency that I provided just case management, supportive counseling, that kind of thing, for about 5 years. And then I found an ABA clinic. And they not only did ABA therapy, they also did Title 19 waiver. So I got to do a little bit of that. I worked as a behavior support professional in that capacity, as well as when I became certified and worked for the agency, I did some birth to 3 work, as well as some school contract work. And then one day I saw an ad for a school-based BCBA for an LEA, a county in our state, West Virginia. I was like, what the heck? I might as well try out and see if this is a good fit, because I really did enjoy doing the school contract piece. And then I thought that I could do this. I really like this. I like meeting, because it's different in a clinic, right? So you don't get to meet all the other people and I felt like I didn't get to collaborate as much. I got to meet teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators, along with a student, and I really enjoyed that. So I applied for that position and got it. I worked there for about 8 years as a behavior analyst in the school district. So my main job was to, unfortunately, put out fires. I hoped to build capacity. However, the need for behavior services and behavior intervention was so high. And I worked in one of the largest LEAs in our state. So I'd say I had approximately like 10 schools, and our team of behavior specialists, we each kind of split those up, and we tried to stay more to the self-contained classrooms because there weren't very many of us, and most of the most challenging behaviors were in those self-contained classrooms. So I had about 25 that I monitored. Not necessarily that many kids,
Right.
however, but one of my goals was to get buy-in and to get to know my teachers. And it was easier that way to at least say, okay, these are my schools, these are my classrooms, these are my teachers. So that way, I could get in there, get to know them, and become a part of their team, because it's hard when you have an outsider come in, right? And I've had teachers tell me, well, those people that come in with a clipboard and sit in the corner, they just sit there and don't say anything. And then they give us some recommendations and you never see them again. I did not want to be that person.
Sure.
So I worked there for quite some time, and I'll be honest, I was getting a little burnout. I really enjoyed the position and enjoyed the job, but the more I thought about it, I was like, there's got to be something bigger. They've got to be able to make a bigger change somehow, because I know we're suffering. And we are just treading water pretty much. Sometimes we were drowning and then we were back to treading water. So there's a position that opened up for our Department of Education in West Virginia, and it was for an autism coordinator position. I actually waited till the last minute. It was the last day. I thought, oh, I don't know if I could do this. This might be something interesting. So the cool thing was, I do love autism, but I'm a very huge advocate for behavior analysis in general as the science. So I know we can help more than students with autism. There's that organizational behavior management piece. There's all of that, right? There's other exceptionalities, general education. We have so much to bring to the table. So I was like, I don't know if I really want to apply for this position. However, the requirements were behavior oriented. So no FBAs, behavior intervention plans, be able to, provide training to staff, all of that. And I'm like, check, check, check. I think I could do that. So I applied for that position and ended up getting that position. So now I am a special education coordinator at the State Department of West Virginia.
That's awesome. And I think it's great because you've had kind of an interesting trajectory, but also had lots of experience in different kinds of environments, which I think is really helpful for the conversation that we're going to have today, which is about disseminating behavior analysis in schools and what that looks like. And I know that you made a comment, and I felt very similar before I took the position I have now, of I'm doing a lot of really good work, and I think a lot of people are benefiting from it, but I feel like I could be doing something bigger or more impactful. So tell me a little bit about what that looked like to you as you moved into this position now at the Department of Education.
Well, I'm going to start by saying I'm kind of building the plane while flying it.
As always, right?
So I am the first BCBA they've had at the West Virginia Department of Education. My predecessors really focused more on autism. They also did dabble in a little behavior, but they didn't have the extent of knowledge as I do as a BCBA. So when I came in and I talked to my supervisor, I was like, there's just so much that we need. We need trainings. We need behavior 101 for our staff. There's so much turnover. There's all kinds of things. And she's been wonderful and kind of allows me to take the position where it needs to go as far as how it fits in our state. When I first started, this was almost 2 years ago, this has been a difficult transition from being in the classroom to being in more of an administrative position. But I reach out to our LEAs. I find out what they need because that's important to ask them. Not every place is the same. We have some extremely rural areas, as well as some LEAs that have, pockets of more people with different or populations. It's not as spread out, but it's really interesting, the dynamics here. We have some schools that some LEAs that just have maybe 2 elementary schools, a middle school and a high school, or a middle high combination. So they don't have a huge population. So it's interesting on how it's set up. So one of the things that I did here that I thought was the number one top thing I wanted to do was start an LEA behavior specialist group. So at first, when I started that group, I thought, oh, I'll just ask BCBAs to join, right? But as I got to know our LEAs and got to visit them and to see kind of what they were doing, not everybody had that luxury, right? Not everybody had a BCBA, nor did they have a school psychologist. They had to contract out, or they didn't have the staff that had the behavioral expertise. And they had, I had a teacher ask me, say, hey, I don't even know how to do this FBA, and I got this form signed, right? So one of the things that I switched that to was to ask each one of our LEAs if they have someone that, focuses on behavior, invite those people to join the group, because I feel like my position is really going to be targeting that capacity building, especially in our LEAs. Because one of the things that I do want to note is that and this is something I say a lot. I mean, if they knew how to do the things, if they knew how to work with these kids, they would already do them. So they need someone at least that has the expertise, that can share that information or assist a team, or hopefully one day I can train those people and then they can train everybody else. You know what I mean? To help build
Mhm.
capacity, because I feel like our educators absolutely need these tools. Unfortunately, I see people that come in contracting. I was a contractor at one point. We're going to come in, we're going to do all the things, or we're going to pull that kid and they're going to come to our clinic 40 hours a week, which wasn't really socially significant for that child.
Right.
And I feel like in my position, no pressure to me, that I'm doing a disservice if I'm not disseminating and teaching and providing staff with these tools, because they can learn them and they can do them. And that will help them tremendously with dealing with some of the challenges that they're facing.
Yeah, and I think the science of behavior is super important, not just for interfering behaviors, but also for prosocial behaviors, academic behaviors, right? I mean, we, as school-based behavior analysts, we know a lot about the science of teaching, essentially. And school-based BCBAs may not be experts in content as far as the science content, the social studies content, whatever the case may be. But we do know a lot about the process of skill acquisition. And so, talk a little bit about how you kind of are helping frame the science of behavior for the folks that you're supporting around the state.
Well, one of the things that came to mind when you were talking about that teaching part is our special education office really has an initiative focused around specially designed instruction.
Sure.
So we were disseminating that information. We did a few conferences. Our lead on our SDI team is doing wonderful. And I sat there and I kept thinking, you know what? Behavior could be play a big part in this, because what do? We do SDI, right? Especially when we work with kiddos and do assessments and design their, let's say, treatment, more of a clinic term, but their goals and their IEP goals and what they're going to work on, right? So I kept pushing and I was like, I really think that I could bring something to this team, or I would love to talk to you about specially designed instruction and behavior analysis. So they ended up adding me to this team. So
Be
just
careful
gives
what you
me
ask for,
one,
right?
right. That's one more thing. I thought, oh no, what did I do? But it's okay, because I really think that what we have to bring as behavior analysts is extremely important. And to be a part of that team and to have someone actually ask, well, what do you think? Or how can you bring something to the table is very, I'm honored, right? For the state of West Virginia, because a lot of times we're behind the times. And for me to be able to advocate and join those groups and spread the word, I guess,
Hmm.
and let people know, like, it's nothing to be scared of, right? It's behavior analysis is nothing to be scared of. It's something that if provided the right training and doing the right research and looking into interventions, that people can do, right? So that's what I'm hoping to bring to the table, especially with this specially designed instruction team. There's a bunch of us. There's several different educators from different departments that represent different areas for that specially designed instruction team. So I'm really excited to see what we're going to do moving forward.
That's awesome. So you've brought this up a couple of times, and I'd like to get some concrete considerations. So when we talk about disseminating behavior analysis and the science of behavior, what are some suggestions or recommendations you have for people who do this within their own role, whether that's I'm a classroom teacher, I'm a coach at the school level, I consult across an entire district, or I work at a level that's across an entire state, whatever that role may look like. What are some considerations that you would suggest people think about when we talk about disseminating our science?
Well, one, get the facts. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because ABA has gotten a lot of scrutiny over the past few years, and we hear a lot of negative things. And really, when we talk about behavior, I really emphasize the importance of it being a science. Like, it exists in our world, it is a science. We just put words to things that happen, and we can do things with that science. So it's really important for them to get the correct information as far as what ABA is. And that can be difficult here, because I don't know how to
It's
say
not just,
this.
yeah, I would say it's not just, I would say that that is a large problem, is I think there is a lot of misconception about what ABA is, even for people who are potentially familiar with it. I mean, I talk a lot about when I do trainings that, it's not a bag of tricks. It's not a toolbox even. It is a science, and how we apply that is a scientific process, and we need to do that with fidelity and with conceptual, systematic. I mean, all of our dimensions of behavior, right?
Right. And I compare it to, like medicine a lot of times, especially with interventions. So I think people understand that a little bit better. So if I need antibiotics for an infection, I'm not going to stop taking it after 2 days because I feel a little bit better.
Right.
And that's the same thing with your behavior intervention. Or if I don't feel a little bit better, oh, this is not working, like I'm just going to stop taking the medication. You don't do that. You keep doing it, right? So I think that's the important piece for behavior intervention and disseminating that, is that it is a science, like you said, and you have to keep doing the process, right? You can't just give up, and you can't just stop taking the antibiotics because you feel like it's not working, or two, you feel like you are just feeling so much better that you don't need to take this medicine anymore. The same thing with behavior intervention.
Yeah, I agree. So we have, getting the facts straight. What other recommendations do you have?
Um, well, learning as much as possible. I usually share a lot of good resources. One thing that I did, and I'll just tell you, for our state, when I first started this position, I just, and at first I'm like, what do I do? Like, it's not like I'm in an office. Like, I'm not used to being in an office and
Right.
not running here and running there. I don't feel like I'm doing anything, right? Even though I am doing something. So one of the things they kind of approached me with when I first started this position was, hey, we're going to need you to present on behavior in 2 weeks at our summit. And I'm like, oh no, like I don't even have anything together. What am I going to do? Um, so it worked out pretty well. I did have crazy things happen. There was a fire drill in the middle of my first presentation ever with the State Department, and my microphone kept squealing. My PowerPoint didn't work. So I'm
Murphy's Law.
surprised so far. Maybe this might not. Maybe we'll hear some interference with some crazy stuff in this podcast because I'm like a magnet for those kind of things. However, one thing I did do is I sat down and I remembered what staff told me at the county level, at the LEA level. So it's not helpful talking at somebody.
Right.
I've had people fall asleep or just scroll on their phones. You guys probably know what I'm talking about, not really paying attention. So I thought, I'm going to create something that they can use, that they're going to have something to take with them. So I created this, I'm not going to say pamphlet, but it's more of a little booklet, right? It's called
Okay.
Behavior Blueprint: Crafting Strategies for Your Classroom. So I took about 10 areas and I broke those down into easy, little sections. So my dream was it for to be a workshop. So I've done it as a full day workshop. I can't tell you all the 10 areas, but some of them are developing relationships, right? Proactive strategies, data collection, function of behavior, ABC data collection, crisis planning, those kind of things that are really important for people to know. So I guess that really is something that would answer your question too. That tool that I created, I ended up sending it to our communications to have it printed off. And then she emailed me back and said, "Hey, was this done internally? I'd like to put graphics to it." And I'm like, "Well, okay, awesome." Like, I didn't know that was a thing. So now we have like a little booklet with those things in it. I've been providing some workshops. I've also done like a train the trainer going through the workbook. I've done last school year, I did monthly sessions for Train the Trainer, so webinar, so people could come in, and those people who, like in those roles you were talking about, or that need assistance with behavior or need to be that one with more expertise, I taught them kind of how my vision was to using the workbook. They have options, right? Though. And I know it's hard to get a full day with staff together. That's like almost non-existent. So one of the good things about this workbook is that we can divide it up into sections. So if you wanted to work on this section, you can work on this section during a PL day, or work on this section during a professional learning day. So that was kind of my thought. Like, I'm like, I need to give them something. And it's a workbook, so it's got activities in it for each section. So we go through, they can work in groups at their tables, and then they share the information out as far as those different sections, like even sharing what they currently do in their classrooms. Because as behavior analysts, it's important for us to realize that the staff in the classroom are the experts. Even if they're not the experts or not certified, it is still their classroom, right?
Right.
So if they have tools that work, if they have things that, oh yeah, I do this morning meeting and we talk about what we did over the weekend for our relationship development piece every Monday. I want to hear those things, because others that are in that group, you usually take more in from your peers, right? Like, say, oh, that teacher's actually doing it. Maybe I will try that, right? So that's kind of how I set up the workshop, and people share information, and then I give suggestions of what other strategies they can use. They have a note section to write those down to do planning. I like doing this at the beginning of the school year, just when everybody's fresh. So some LEAs have had me come out. However, I'm only one person, and I think we have about 60 LEAs, because we do now have some charter schools. 60, 61. I don't know the exact number, but it's close to that. So it's really hard for me to be able to get out to everybody. So that's why that capacity building with that behavior blueprint was an idea that I had, and it is actually on our website underneath our PBIS behavior section under special education. And I have some thoughts to put in the works of a behavior blueprint 2.0, because I've gotten a lot of feedback from staff like, "Ooh, I would have loved to have had some examples of some preference assessments, or where I could find these preference assessments, or different ABC data forms." Like, that way they could have it all at their fingertips. So my goal is I write down, I have a copy of Behavior Blueprint that I write down all the ideas that people have been giving me. That way I can make it better for them. Because who would you ask if anybody, what do you need for your classroom, or what do you need for your students? Are the staff and the people that are actually going through this. So that's why I'm really big on getting information from them. And I think it's important as behavior analysts that we realize that, right? I know we know our stuff, and we might get a little aggravated at times. However, it's not it's not ours.
Right.
It is a team effort. We are invited into that environment to help. So we need to, realize that, and we need to collaborate, and we need to work with others. So I thought the behavior blueprint might kind of be what you were thinking about as far as dissemination. I really wanted to create something that they would have solid in their hands, could write notes and go back and go, "Oh yeah, I remember that. I'm gonna arrange my classroom like this." Or I'm going to work on using this method of positive reinforcement for my students in the classroom. And, of course, we talk about MTSS, and that follows through as far as tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, that relationship development piece. I mean, that's across the board universal, right? Focusing on those things and talking about how that can fit in to the behavior blueprint. So I feel like that has been a really good resource, and I'm really proud of that. At first I was like, oh my gosh, people are actually asking me for copies of this, or people are actually wanting to use Behavior Blueprint. And I'm like, why not? Because at first I thought, I guess it was some of the stuff is basic, right? But I didn't realize that, I think as I go along, especially being in this role with a bigger impact, that people don't know what they don't know, and I don't know what they don't know. So it's really important for me to start with the most, basics, the important part of behavior analysis, which I don't think people realize that is part of the science, right? That relationship development. I mean, we've had research on pairing. I mean, that's similar, right? Positive reinforcement. They use consequences, that word when I think a unicorn dies every time somebody uses it in that negative way. However, it's our job to teach them. So one of the things that I also want to disseminate as far as behavior analysis goes is punishment versus reinforcement. We have to have that balance, right? That those corrections, those 4 to 1s. Like if we're going to correct behavior, we need to correct behavior. However, we need to actually reinforce behavior. And I think a lot of people don't really understand what positive reinforcement is. And that's another one of my soapboxes I'm on when I do training, is teaching. I've been training school psychologists. I've been training school counselors now, and different for people from different backgrounds on functional behavior assessment and behavior intervention planning. And I do talk about punishment and reinforcement because I feel like I can't talk about FBA without it, right? To know the difference and to know what a punisher is. If I touch a hot stove, ouch, that's a punisher. It happens in naturally occurring punishers, those kind of things. But the reinforcement is key. Like it's not just something, right? It's not just the Skittles. It's not just going out to swing for 10 minutes. It's a principle. And that's why I'm trying to teach that it is an actual scientific principle, right? If the behavior that we want to see is not happening, it's not that the reinforcement doesn't work, because by definition it works. So I'm really trying hard to teach what positive reinforcement is, because I think that is something that people lack the knowledge of because they think it's a thing, right? They think they have to give something. And then they're like, oh, positive reinforcement doesn't work for Johnny. And I'm like, oh, that's not how it works, right? So really trying to teach people what those principles are and how they're used, right? And a lot of times I like to compare it when I do trainings to typical behavior, adult behaviors we do versus what we might see in the classroom. Because I talk about escape avoidance, and I always bring up whenever I go shopping and it's Saturday and I have my coffee and I'm looking at the things I'm probably not going to buy. And then all of a sudden I turn the corner and I see a staff member from school I don't want to talk to. Or if I see a student that I love to death, but I'm not on a Saturday, right? That changes my behavior, and that is some escape behavior. So I like to give examples like that to think about our own behavior and how that works. So I know that's a lot that I just said. I hope it's on track.
I think it's really good. And I think there's a couple things I want to pull out of that. So one, you talked about things like building relationships, which I think is I think in education, that's almost a buzzword these days, but it is based in our science of behavior, right? And so how do we bring our science of behavior in a way that educators are friendly to? And so instead of coming in talking about stimulus pairing and some of our fancy jargon that is important, and it's important to be technologically precise, but how do we do that in an environment with people who may not have the same vocabulary that we have? I know when I actually teach people who are wanting to become BCBAs in that first course, one of the things I always tell them is, it's going to be like learning a foreign language. And then by the time they get to like the fifth or sixth course in the sequence, I'm like, okay, now you need to learn how to translate that foreign language for people who don't speak this language and do it in a way that's still functional and useful for them. So I think that's a really important key. I also really like the conversation point you made about building capacity. You're right. One person cannot serve the needs of everybody. I would actually argue that there are not enough behavior analysts in the world to serve the needs, even if they all worked in public schools. And so, how do we do that in a way that is the most effective and most efficient? And I think we're all still trying to figure a lot of that out. But then the third point that you made that I think is really important is at the end of the day, unless you are the classroom teacher, that is not your classroom. And you are a guest there. You have hopefully all the great intentions to help and support, but everybody knows at some point you're going to leave, and that classroom teacher is left there to still teach those children. And so, what is it that we can bring to them that at the end of the day, they're going to be able to use, be able to implement, and will implement when we leave? And I think that for me, that's a big part of what I think about when I'm doing training, when I'm supporting classrooms, whatever that may look like, because I can walk out the door and they can be like, see ya, and not do anything that we've talked about because that's their choice as the teacher of that classroom. Now, I hope that's not what happens, and I try to program better than that, but that absolutely can, and I'm sure it at times does happen for all of us that work with public school educators. I think the other piece that's really important that we haven't talked about is how we ensure that we have our own supports as well. Because when you get into, like, you're the only behavior analyst working at the West Virginia Department of Education, as far as I'm aware, right?
Yes.
Yep. And I've definitely, I don't work at the Department of Education for our state, but I've definitely been in situations where I am the only behavior analyst. And so it's really important, I believe, to make sure that I have that support network so that I can go back to them and say, am I crazy? Or, or I'm not getting my point across very well, or people aren't taking what I'm saying and it doesn't seem to be helping. Because at the end of the day, we are responsible for social significant change, right?
Right.
And so if what we're doing isn't supporting that, then I don't know that we're being as effective as we need to be. So I guess my question for us to kind of lead into our end here is, how do you find supports for yourself, given you're kind of in this unique position?
Well, I do connect with several BCBAs around our state, right? But it's still kind of lonely because not our school BCBAs do understand kind of
Sure.
where I'm coming from and the things.
And probably have a very
How,
similar mission to you, right? Or vision of
yes,
what they want things to be.
absolutely. However, they are drowning, right?
Right.
So one of the things that I've done in this position, I'm like, I usually don't, I'm not the type of person that just reaches out to random people, right? Like I'm like a little bit of an introvert. So I was sitting here one day and I contacted you out of the
Mhm.
blue because I was like, wow, she is doing great things. There's
Aw,
this behavior analysis network for Virginia. I want to do Virginia.
you're so sweet.
Well, one time I told my boss in a meeting, and if she listens to this, she's going to kill me. But I said, that's it. I want to move to Virginia. And she was like, Jennifer, why don't you bring Virginia here? And I thought, you know what? That is a better way to think of it. Because I feel like, there are several other states that do have some things in place, but really specifically Virginia, I've been looking at because of all of the things and the school network that they have. Um, so I've reached out to people in my position, which aren't very many. I
Mhm.
talked to, oh gosh, a lady in Minnesota right now. She's a BCBA for her state department, and we meet monthly just to talk and to support. And, it's been extremely helpful to me, right? Because especially in my position, no one knows what we do. And
Mhm.
sometimes I don't even know what to do, depending on the day and the things that pop up, right? So it's really nice to have that support network. And I'm glad I don't have very many. But I'm getting to the point to where I now just kind of reach out to those behavior analysts, right? If I see you guys on social media or if I run across you on a website, I'm always like, oh, is somebody going to talk to me? Are they going to email me back? Are they even going to care? But I've been lucky to really meet some great people and taking that leap. And one thing that I do want to stress to people that might be listening that are like, oh my gosh, I'm on an island, please reach out to those people. It's so nice because I wish I would have had $1 for every time I thought I was crazy. When you say that, I relate to it so much because it's almost like I'm in a foreign world, especially when I started with education coming from a clinic. And I've been in public ed for almost 10 years now. So I've been in public ed longer than I've been in the clinic setting. However, it's still an adventure. It's still, learning things. It's still all kinds of things that I don't even know. I mean, I'm going to learn so much in the next however many years that I'm here. But it's really important for me that now I reached out to those people who could not just give me some advice or say, if I'm like, what am I doing? Like, you know what I mean? What am I doing? Am I crazy? Those questions. And it's nice when you can reach out to someone who understands. And then I feel ready to go and to tackle the day and not quit my job.
Which is
so
a good
it's
thing.
really important. Yes. It's a struggle, especially for somebody who's kind of, I always felt like I'm not a teacher. I've met a lot of behavior analysts who have their background in education, and my background's in psychology, so I'm a little different from those in education, and I've always felt like, oh, maybe I don't belong. However, over the years, I've learned that there are a lot of things that I'm able to bring to the table. And just because I'm not a teacher doesn't mean, like you were talking about, using the science of teaching. Behavior analysis is the science of teaching, like we're teaching behaviors. So, and one thing I like to stress too is in schools, behavior is always viewed as something negative, something
Right.
challenging. And teaching people that behavior is behavior, right? Writing my name on a piece of paper is behavior. Participating in group discussion, that's behavior. So kind of the importance of embedding that and meeting the people that I've met on the outside that have went through similar situations really has helped me continue to strive to advocate for our science in the state of West Virginia.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And we've talked about this on previous episodes, and I just would encourage our listeners, if you are feeling like you're on an island, like Jennifer said, or even if you're not, even if you feel like you have lots and lots of supports, reaching out to people is always a great choice. The worst thing that can happen is they don't respond to you. And
Right.
then, and that's okay because the response cost was pretty low, and it's no harm, no foul. But the reality is most people will respond, at least to say, like, I got your email and this is what I can offer or what I can't offer you. And I also have met some incredible people just by sending a cold email and saying, I'm really interested in what you're doing, or I'd like to talk to you more about that. And it's led to some really great network supports that I have as well. So I really appreciate that. That brings us probably to the end of our conversation today, which has been a really, really great conversation. And I appreciate your perspective so much, Jennifer, and sharing with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I will, if you're okay with it, we will link to your behavior blueprint in the show notes since it's online. We'd love to share that for anyone who's interested. And of course, you can visit the West Virginia Department of Education website for that. Like I said, we'll put the link in our show notes so you can get there directly. Jennifer, before we go, is there anything that you want to share with our listeners?
There's just one thing, and I
Right.
think, and it's really for those behavior analysts that are working in schools, right? Don't give up. Things are going to get better. Think about building capacity. And I really encourage you to look at the organizational piece of it, the organizational science piece of it, because I think that's where we are really strong, and where that can help us build capacity. Because what are schools but systems, right? So don't be afraid to take those extra CEUs or read that book that's published about organizational behavior management. You know the science of behavior. And I think the more that we learn about that when we're working in the schools, the better off we're going to be as far as helping. We really need to help the adults. Because, and I'm going to say something that somebody else says, Dr. Pauly Gavoni, I really enjoy him. And I listen to his podcast too. He always said, we can't make it about the students if we don't make it about the staff. Right. And and that resonates with me. And I think about that a lot. So I just want to leave our behavior analysts that are working in schools with that.
Yeah, I love that. And I agree wholeheartedly that, I started working in the schools longer ago than I wish to admit sometimes, but it's been a couple of decades now. And things have changed a lot since that time. And behavior analysis in public schools has changed a lot. And I think overall for the better. And there's still things we need to work on, and there's still things that we need to figure out. But overall, I think things are better and better all the time. But you're right. I think sticking with it and finding your resources and your support so that you can do the best job you can do is really a critical component. So with that, Jennifer, again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Great. And to our listeners, we will see you on the next episode.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Behavior Education Connection. Join us next time for another great conversation about behavior analysis in the schools. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on an episode. Sending out a special thanks to the Virginia Department of Education for supporting our work. We look forward to connecting with you all again soon.